If you're doing mediocre work and you're counting on people paying extra for mediocre work, you're in really big trouble because mediocre work is going away.
Hi everybody, this is Carolina Millan and welcome to a new episode of Beyond the Hustle. And I'm here today with a wonderful guest who, in my opinion, needs no introduction. Mr. Seth Godin. How are you, Seth?
I am terrific. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you, thank you. It's been a wild ride for me over the years, following up with you, and always like, someday he's gonna say yes. And then last week when you replied, I literally jumped off my bed and I was like, oh, he said yes. So thank you. I really, really appreciate you, and this means a lot to me. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, it's important to note I'm not doing this because you hustled me, because you didn't hustle me. And there's a lot of confusion about hustle. When it is selfish, when someone is just trying to get what they want, I have no time for that, and neither does anyone else. But when it's the other kind, which is based in generosity and the persistence of making things better, I think that's fantastic.
I appreciate that, and I totally agree. I completely agree. So thank you, thank you. So you have a new book coming out, and I'm very much looking forward to people reading it. I already got access to it, so I'm also grateful for that, for your team allowing me to get early access to the book, The Song of Significance. And I would love for you to tell us a little more about how this book came to be, why writing this book, and why now.
So, I was on the internet since 1976, and it has changed a lot of things. Many of the things we focused on were generative, about connection, about creativity, about being able to enable a small business person to spread their news. But one of the other things it did was it helped put the final nails in the coffin of industrialism. Industrialism is 120 years old. It's taking oil out of the ground, burning it, building machines, and making stuff as cheap and as fast as we can. That it's bosses and managers and compliance and obedience and tests and false proxies and all of the brutality and caste systems and social injustice of turning a crank as fast and cheap as we can as we race to the bottom. And it's been going on for so long, we think it's normal. And now, with outsourcing, with robots, with AI, it's coming to an end. If you have a mediocre job doing what they tell you to do all day, they're going to find someone cheaper than you to do it, maybe even an AI. And what that reveals to us is we need to race to the top instead. That significance is the best job we ever had. Significance is feeling like you matter, knowing that you matter, doing work that no one else could do, being alive, achieving more than you thought you could. And I guess the question the book asks is, why isn't every day like that? Why aren't we working to build a world where people can bring their humanity to work, not just do what they're told?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, our education system prepares us for that basically. And yeah, we were just being told what to do, and then we get to a job and we continue to get told what to do. So, yeah. You do emphasize in the book the distinction between leadership and management, right? Which I think a lot of people know in theory, but not so much in practice. So
Right.
how can managers embrace leadership in today's world and make work more significant?
Well, maybe they can't. Um, Managing is a very specific job, and we should be honest about what it is. Managers use power and authority and their spot in the hierarchy to get people to do what they did yesterday, but faster and cheaper. We need managers at fast food restaurants and at steelworks and at the postal service because they are enabling the machine to turn its crank. And sometimes we call these people leaders, especially if they're famous, but leadership is different. Leadership is voluntary. Leadership is the risk of going from here to the unknown, that liminal space forward. You don't have to be the boss to be a leader. You can be the frontline person at a coffee shop But if you're interacting with customers in a way that causes them to change, you're leading. And so this book exists so that we will talk about it. So we will have a conversation with others. And I think the conversation can start with, are you a manager or are you a leader, and why?
What do you think about AI today and the potential it has to do significant work? Do you think it's going to take that away from humans at some point?
So machines and computers have taken an enormous amount of things from humans. We just didn't complain about it before. So, if you go ask a travel agent about what the internet did, oh, that's right, you can't, because there are no travel agents left. Because instead of trusting the judgment of a person, we just get to see all the stuff right in front of us. Do I miss travel agents? Maybe a little, but I'm not willing to pay for it. And I feel bad for the travel agents who hone their craft and can't do it anymore. And so if you're a mediocre travel agent, you're not a travel agent anymore. The only ones who are left are the best travel agents who work for high-end clients. Well, the same thing is true for writers. If you're a mediocre writer asking people to write guest posts for them for $1, you're out of work, because I can get Chat GPT to write for me for free. So I just need to raise my game, because if every time I get close to being mediocre, I can be easily replaced. I have to keep writing in a way that makes it hard for Chat GPT to write like me. And the same thing is going to be true for so many other things. When everyone got a camera 10 years ago, a lot of photographers went out of business because they were just making a living carrying around an expensive box. Now everyone has the box. So you better have a point of view or you're gone. Well, AI is going to do the same thing. Will it create opportunities for creation of value? There's no doubt about it, because what people have ignored is that AI doesn't get tired, and AI can treat different people differently. So right now, if you need psychotherapy, you need to spend a lot of money and go once a week for an hour out of your day. And maybe it's not a day you need to go to therapy. With AI as a therapist, you can call a therapist whenever you want, 5 times a day, 20 times a day. The therapist will remember everything you said last time. And so the minute you get stressed, press a button and the therapist will talk to you. That's going to happen in 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the scary part, I guess. And what I see, I mean, the professionals who are, I guess, complaining the most about AI are people in the creative space, artists, musicians. Do you think, do you think people will go to a concert of, an AI? I mean, or will the human part still be relevant in that kind of a field?
Okay, so the people in the record business, the music business, said that they were going to go out of business when the player piano came along. They said they were going to go out of business when radio came along. Why would anyone buy a record if they could listen for free? They said they were going out of business when the CD came along. They went out of business when Napster came along. They're very good at announcing that they're going to go out of business. Why do we go to a concert? That's a really good question, because the concerts I go to, jazz concerts in a small club, you can't reproduce that by listening to the record. But a lot of pop concerts, they're just playing you a recording while you're in the room, and they're pretending to sing and dance. So why are you going? You're going because the other people are there. So do I think an impresario is going to put together some version of EDM that's AI generated and shifting with what's in the room? Absolutely. Any minute now. And if they do a good job, people will go, because they're not going because they're actually going to get to shake, whoever's hand, Taylor Swift. They're going because their friends are standing next to them, jumping up and down. So yeah, I think that's going to happen. I don't feel bad for, Elvis Costello or Bob Dylan. They'll be fine.
So, how do you see artificial intelligence shaping the future of work? And what impact do you think it will have on traditional job roles, team dynamics, and the skills required for success in the workplace?
So we outsource stuff all the time. You don't know the person who made that dress, I'm guessing. You needed a dress, you bought a dress, right? You needed the dress to do your work, but you didn't have to have a significant relationship with the person who made the dress. You just bought it.
I know the
And
brand, but that's it.
yeah, right. And the same thing is true with the laptop you're using, that the chip came from one place, whatever, it's off the shelf. The same thing is true when we have a freelancer via Upwork who's 7,000 miles away, who's doing some editing of sound quality. It's a commodity. We manage that. So we are going to manage what ChatGPT does. We're going to manage AI. But if we don't lead, then we're in the commodity business. So what I'm arguing is we've already gotten comfortable with sending parts of our project to people we will never meet. And this is another example of that. So if you're doing mediocre work and you're counting on people paying extra for mediocre work, you're in really big trouble because mediocre work is going away.
So what can do marketing professionals, right? I was listening to an episode in your podcast where you were actually doing some ChatGPT stuff. What can marketing professionals specifically do today to keep a slight edge, knowing that you can ask AI to do graphic design, to write an article? How do we stay, I'm a marketer myself too. How do we stay away from mediocrity? How do we stay ahead of the curve and, not be replaced?
I think you already said the answer, which is to be a professional. Professional marketers don't run ads and don't write copy. Professional marketers tell stories that resonate with other people. And if you hire a GPT to help you, go for it. But that's not your job isn't to write mediocre copy. Your job is to figure out who you're telling the story to, what change you're seeking to make, who's it for and what's it for? Where do you bring that? And a lot of people who I bump into who call themselves marketers, they're not marketers. They're in the hype business, or they're the interruption marketing business, or they're strip mining attention. But if you really want to be a professional marketer, there is no threats at all coming from ChatGPT.
I hear you. Yeah, I feel the same way. For me, it's a tool, and it's a tool that if you are mediocre, it's going to give you mediocre outputs. If you're a professional, it's going to help you. So it can enhance what you already are. So if you're bad, you continue to be bad. So yeah, well, that brings me to a couple of your other books that I really like. By the way, how do you write so many books? Like, can you share a little bit about your writing process, because you have so many.
Carolina, you and I have been talking for a while, and everything you've said has been smart and insightful. If you just wrote it down, you could write a new book every 5 days. I just write like I talk. There is no magic. There's no muse. I have no talent. I just decided to notice things and try to explain them. If there's something happening in the world, Supreme has a store in New York City. And for years, people waited in line for hours to pay $120 for a t-shirt that they know cost $5 to make. Well, if I can't explain that, I have no business writing a marketing book. So I have to decode that. I see things in the world and I say, why is it like that? How is it like that? Let me explain it, as opposed to what most people in most fields do, which is they memorize it. And memorizing what's happening is not resilient because there is no understanding. And what we need is, in a fast changing world, memorization doesn't work. Understanding does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you about your own attention span, because you must get so many people wanting you to review the books, to, hey, write the foreword or whatever, right? So how do you judge, or how do you select the work that is worth your time? What's your criteria there?
Well, in terms of helping other authors, I don't write forewords, because if I do, Amazon lists me as a co-author, and I'm not. It's not fair to me or the author. I used to blurb books a bunch because people before me did it for me, like Tom Peters. But after having blurbed a lot of books and seeing the hustle, sorry, but I've been hustled too many times by people who want to blurb, that I'm doing much less of that. I don't think it helps sell books either. So how do I decide what to read? Well, the thing that I would remind people is there's no penalty for not finishing a book. So I start lots and lots and lots and lots of books. I just don't finish that many.
What's some of your advice for people who, people who are afraid of change? It could be people who are afraid of changing their managerial style, according to what you share in the book, or just afraid of being laid off with so many massive layoffs going on, or people just afraid in general. What's your advice?
If being afraid is helping you, then I have no advice. If being afraid is getting in the way of living the life you want to live, I will point out that being afraid does not make the thing you're afraid of go away. And there are people who are afraid of skiing, but they learn how to ski. How? Not by going to the Swiss Alps and going down the steepest slope, but by going down a very little slope. If you are afraid of talking to strangers, start by talking to a dog and work your way up to a 5-year-old, and then go to the bus station and ask someone for change. Work your way up. It's a skill. It is a skill to learn to deal and dance with change. Being afraid of it is true, but not helpful. So now you have a chance to learn a new skill.